I think people are really interested in archaeology because it speaks to them in a lot of different ways. One of them is that I think people are very interested. It's not only having a sense of history, but a sense of tangible history. And I think archaeology, especially now, is realizing what it can do in, for instance, looking at socio-natural systems, so the relationship of people to their environments, but it's also giving us a narrative, because one of the, I think, aspects of being a human being that really sets us apart is our ability to internalize deep memories. And so it's a sense of the past that lets us know that we have a present. And I think that archaeology gives people a sense of the past that they otherwise couldn't get.
I think archaeology helps us understand ourselves. By looking at people in the past and how they lived their day-to-day lives, we get a better understanding of ourselves. And really, for me, the excitement comes from being able to relate the things that I do every day, from like making tea in the morning, to cleaning my house, to the things that people would have done, 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago.
Well, I guess the best way to think about it is that, especially living in a globalized world today where things are getting more and more the same, it's a good way as part of anthropology to get a better idea of what diversity humans can actually attain. And of course, the diversity we see in cultures now or 100 years ago would have been 10, 20, 100-fold in the past. So it's a way of gaining the perspective on the true diversity of the human species.
And what's nice about archaeology, and one of the real strengths of the field, is that it's not just history based on written records alone, although that's part of the field of archaeology, historical archaeology, but it's people's material culture, and as a consequence of that, we can look at various day-to-day kinds of materials that have been left behind, and we can really piece together a lot of information about people. And I think that's one of the really great benefits of archaeology. It really expands and democratizes our history of the past of many, many different people, not just the written histories of a few elite people or, a few men that were powerful in history. So I think that's one of the great strengths.
We often like to say that for those who don't have a past, or for things that were, for people who have stories but they were never written down, or put in a place where people could publicly see or access that information, we as archaeologists facilitate and bring about basically that knowledge. We bring it to light. We take what was once buried and not told, and we actually tell the story.
Archaeology contributes to our understanding of the world, at least from my perspective, in helping us see how different cultures come together and interact, especially in the early part of European expansion around the world when they were encountering different indigenous populations. For example, in Northern California, Europeans and Native Californians engaged each other during a series of short-term contacts, but that may have had long-term implications for the trajectory of Native California cultures and how they changed over time. So I think that archaeology can really make a contribution to seeing how different cultures come together, how they interact, and whether there's long-term implications.
Many things, right? So of course it tells us a little bit about the past. It reminds us that things haven't always been the same. It means that humans have had to cope with change over long time periods and short time periods, and that we have to figure out ways to do that, especially given some of the major crises that we're facing today. So it gives us some hope for our own resilience and that our abilities that people can to adapt and to change. And it also reminds us that life is never easy, that people die, that people have strained relationships, that people have to deal with territorial incursions, that people have to deal with environmental issues. And so it's both a message of hope and also a message of sort of respect for the challenges that we've been able to face, and face sometimes successfully and sometimes not successfully. So at the detailed level, well, we have colleagues who say, what happens when the animals that people depend on go extinct? Or what happens, as we're going to see with this global warming business, what happens when a whole settlement area suddenly goes underwater or appears, land bridges appear or whatever. So I think it really gives us a long-term perspective on the possibilities and yet the resiliences of being human.